The 2024 49ers schedule has officially been released. Release the Kraken. It's here. It's finally here. And now we get to break it all down. We are going to go through our instant reaction of the schedule all right now. You guys have obviously had some time to kind of digest it, discuss it. Let's break it down, talk about what we like, what we don't like. Are we optimistic? Are we pessimistic? And I want to talk about some of the other things that have dropped as well. So let's get into it all right now. But you guys, if you are hyped about the schedule, drop an SDS in the chat. Let's get after it right now. Smash that like button if you haven't already. Love to see it. What is going down, gang? Shout out to all the SDS popping in. We're live on Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, all of it. And we are here to talk about the 49ers schedule. It's official, like a referee with the whistle. It has been dropped. Initial reactions to the schedule. For me personally, I like it. I like it a lot. I think the way that it's spread out, bye week right there in the middle of the schedule. And then when you look at the way it's kind of spread out, I like it. Six primetime games next year for the San Francisco 49ers. All eyes are going to be on the Niners, and especially towards the end of the year. At the end of the year, you get a bunch of primetime games popping up. And to be honest, I like it. I think there are definitely some opportunities for some games to get flexed, but all things considered, I think this whole season, it might come down to that week 17 matchup against the Lions. The schedule makers are smart. They saw that the 49ers, Lions were in the NFC Championship game last year. They saw how competitive of a game that was. And they're like, you know what? I guarantee you 49ers, Lions are going to be battling for it again next year. So let's drop that matchup at the end of the year because guarantee, I can call it right now, that game is going to have massive playoff seeding implications. So right there at week 17, 49ers, Lions, prime time. Ooh, boy. The whole season might come down to week 17. You know, we talked a lot last year about having a first round bye. Well, guess what? That first round bye may either happen or not happen because of that week 17 game against the Lions. So that game to me is absolutely massive. Some things that I don't love about the current schedule is I honestly don't love the placement of the Green Bay Packer game and the Bills game. Both games on the road, both games back to back, both games in late November, early December. There could be snow, sleet. I'm not I like the matchups. I like those games. I don't love that they're back to back. I don't love that they're both on the road in a environments that typically have very the weather is a factor. Absolutely. So that's one thing that stands out to me from this schedule. But I also love right there in the middle. I feel like that Chiefs Cowboys bye week, whew, spicy. Spicy. This season for the 49ers in regards to overall balance. I see some people in the chat saying it's a hard schedule. Yeah, I don't think this is a cakewalk schedule. I don't think anything about it is easy. But what I do like about it is the way it's spread out. Like, I love opening week 1 with the Jets on Monday Night Football for the whole world to see. I love that aspect of it. Then, obviously, you're on the road with the Vikings, then Levi South for week 2, week 3. Then you're playing Patriots at home, Cardinals at home, on the road to Seattle, but then your home bye. So within the first 9 weeks, you're only on the road 3 times. Two of those matchups are back to back on the road. One's in LA, so it's not that big of a deal in regards to travel. We know Levi South, that's the vibe. But I really like when we get to that week 7, week 8 matchup. That's going to be a challenging stretch. It's of course not by any stretch of the imagination going to be a gimme, but I really do like the way it's setting up and getting the Chiefs week 7, then you transition right there to Cowboys week 8, back-to-back home games before the bye. I feel like that's a nice little 9 or what is that? 8 game chunk before you head into the bye week, and then out of the bye week, it's the final run. You're going to have to go through a bit of a gauntlet between the Green Bay Packers, through the Bills, Lions, Dolphins, Bears. Oh my. So overall, I like it. I think it's good balance. Tough schedule, challenging schedule, good balance. If we're gonna have to go, are we gonna dip our toes in the uh way too early score prediction situation? Is it time? Do we throw some way too early score predictions out there? Because I think the 49ers could start out the season relatively hot, very similar to the way they started last year. Like, I do think that the Jets are going to present a challenge. I don't think the Jets are going to be a gimme W, but the fact that they will be at home, I think they can absolutely get the dub week 1 against the Jets. I absolutely think the 49ers are going to beat the Vikings on the road because you're either looking at a starting quarterback of Sam Darnold, who we know very well, or JJ McCarthy as a rookie. So I'm going to go ahead and pencil week 2 as a W. So right out the gate, you're starting 2-0. And then you go to the Rams at Levi South. I do think the Rams have definitely gotten better through the draft and through free agency. Now, they did lose Aaron Donald, but I do think they have got a very talented young defensive line. Obviously, Puka Nacua is going into year 2. They have some interesting weapons, but I still think that the 49ers can get it done versus the Rams. So I think that's a W. You could really realistically see the 49ers starting out the season 3-0. And then you have the Patriots come to town. Who's going to be the starting quarterback? Is it going to be Drake May? Is it going to be Jacoby Brissett? You have a brand new head coach. You got a whole lot of change going on over there with the Patriots. I don't think that's going to be a W for the Patriots at all. So Again, realistically, now we're talking 4-0. And then you go Cardinals. I still think the 49ers have the upper hand on the Cardinals. There's a good chance they start the season 6-0. There's a strong reality that exists where the 49ers can start out 6-0, 5-1. That feels very realistic. And that's not, it's hard to do schedule predictions this early sometimes because everything looks like a W, right? Because we are 49er fans and we're looking at this and we're like, we know how good this team is. I think Brock Purdy is going to improve next year. I think the offense is going to evolve a little bit. I think the offensive line is going to improve next year, even with the same guys returning. So I think there's a reality that exists where the offense will actually improve. I'm really curious to see how the defense that's been retooled, new defensive coordinator, really interested to see how that group comes together. But in regards to the offense, I can see the offense taking a step forward, which is already one of the strongest aspects of this team. So 5-1, 6-0, definitely a realistic outcome for those 6 games. Now, when you look at the Chiefs and Cowboys matchups next, I think you have to pick a split. I think you have to win one, lose one. Those are going to be tough matchups. I know they're both at home. We know we're going up against those Chiefs, right? And I think we all agree that we can take down the Dallas Cowboys. So I'm just going to go ahead and say we split with one of those teams. It's going to be a 1-1 split. So they could be theoretically 7-1, 6-2, potentially heading into the bye. If you're 6-1, or no, what would it be 7-1 or 6-2 heading into the bye week? Again, we're cooking. That's a great spot to be in. And when you look at everything and how it's stacked, that does seem realistic. Like that definitely looks like, and we know things happen, injuries happen. There's a lot of variables that are going to change how all of these things play out. But again, we're doing it on paper right now. So on paper, it does look like we could be talking 1 to 2 losses potentially in those first 8 games. So if that's how the San Francisco 49ers start the year, that's exactly what we want. That's exactly where we want to be. That would have us most likely at the top of the NFC. That would most likely have us again just right where we want to be. So I like it. I like it. And then I think the second half of the season does get more challenging. I think when you look at, going to the Bucks could present a challenge. I might say that Bucks game, that could be our first trap game. You always got to account for 1 to 2 trap games. Remember last year, everyone was like, oh, we're going to go to Cleveland and we're going to go beat Cleveland up. Wasn't the case. So you always have to account for trap games. So there's 1 to 2 every single year where a team sneaks up on you. You have a bad week, you have a bad day, and the ball doesn't bounce your way. That it's inevitable. Every single team in the league gets trapped. Remember when what was it? It was Zach Wilson. I think when the Eagles were 10-1 last year, the only team that had beat the Eagles at that point was Zach Wilson and the Jets, and they were not a good team. So it happens to everyone. Everyone gets caught with the trap. So the Bucks, to me, week 10 out of a bye, travel, 10 a.m. start time on the East Coast, Baker Mayfield. You've got some solid weapons on the outside. Big fan of Rashad White. I feel like they're improved. That could be a trap game right there. So you got to pick one. So I think that might be my trap. And then, I mean, honestly, we could really make the case that the 49ers sweep the division again. You really can. You can really make that case into a reality where 49ers sweep Rams, Seahawks, Cardinals. Now we do know that the division can be tricky at times. It can. So we're not gonna. There's definitely a range of outcome where we sweep, but there's also a range of outcome where we split in some instances. So we'll see how that goes down. The Green Bay Packers Bills game. I think that's going to be a challenging back to back. Going to Packers end of November, then on the road again to the Bills. That's going to be a challenging sequence. So it'll be fascinating to see how they ultimately round out those two games. And then Bears, Rams, Dolphins. I think Bears is a W. Rams should be a W. Dolphins is another challenging one. Another challenging one on the road. All that stuff is, I mean, we know that the Dolphins present some challenges. They are coached well. We know their head coach very well because he was our former offensive coordinator. And then you look at Lions and you wrapping up with Cardinals. So I feel like the first half of the year sets us up pretty well. Sets us up pretty good to be able to get our record into a good spot. And then the war of attrition, who can stay the healthiest, who can just withstand, who can win those tough, gritty, ugly games on the road. And that is going to shape where the San Francisco 49ers ultimately seed. I think if you wanted to throw a record at it, I mean, 12-5 feels really fair, right? I think 12-5, 13-4 if things really go our way. But 13-4, 12-5 for the San Francisco. I mean, again, just looking at the way that it's stacked, looking at the break in the middle of the year, 6 primetime games, all kinds of stuff cooking up. So shout out to everyone who's saying 17-0. I respect it. I respect 17-0. But that might be almost more, that might be harder to get than just getting back to the Super Bowl. You know what I mean? That might be more challenging than the 49ers getting into the playoffs, making the Super Bowl. So I think it'll be fascinating to see how this season shakes out. The biggest thing that I want to see, how does the defense respond to their new defensive coordinator? You got some new defensive linemen up front. There is going to be a bit of a changeover period on the defensive side. There's a lot of moving parts to this defense. The offense is basically the same with some additional pieces. So I think the offense is going to evolve, take steps forward. I think we might see them spread the ball out a little bit more, put the ball in Brock's hands a little bit more, let Brock be the one of the main drivers of the offense. And we know he is from just a general standpoint, but in the sense of spreading the ball around with his arm, just really giving him more opportunities to attack with the vertical passing game. I think we could see Brock take another step, and I think Kyle is going to help push that forward. That's the way that I've been viewing some of the moves of the offseason, how they built out their offense. I do think there is a good chance that we see this offense kind of see an evolution towards being a little bit more pass heavy, than we have seen in the past. And I think that will benefit them. Obviously, you see all the wide receivers that the 49ers have. They got to use them. They got to use them. You draft Ricky Pearsall. You bring in Jacob Cowing. It's time, baby. It's time to unleash the dogs. What's the script this year? Oh, man, the script better be the San Francisco 49ers winning the Super Bowl at the very end. Brock Purdy, regular season MVP. That's what the script's got to be. I need to have a word with the script writers because they've been doing us dirty. They have been doing us dirty. They have been setting us up and then pulling the rug out from under us. I've had enough of these script writers. Someone give me a number, an email address. I need to speak to someone. I need to speak to a manager because I'm tired of it. Let me knock down those script writer room doors. Let me burst in there, light all of their scripts on fire, and I'm like, here's the storyline. The storyline is Brock Purdy wins MVP by a landslide, not by like, oh, he's getting carried. Oh, they have the Avengers. Nah. Brock comes back with a vengeance. Kyle puts the ball in Brock's hands, and Brock becomes. I talked about this. I talked about my prediction for Brock earlier, and I'll bring it up again. Brock Purdy broke the 49ers franchise record for passing yards, throwing for, I think it was 4,282 yards, beating Jeff Garcia. I think if the San Francisco 49ers and Brock Purdy plays all 17 games, because remember, Brock didn't play the final game of the year. And on top of not playing the final game of the year, there has also been a lot of games where the 49ers had been so in front that Brock either got replaced by Darnold or all they were doing was running out clock. And some fourth quarters were highly uncompetitive. So if you get me Brock Purdy playing all 17 games, you get me Brock Purdy playing in, I would say, 85% of the fourth quarters that he is playing in are competitive, meaning they're either playing from behind, they're playing with a small lead, so they still have to attack and keep pushing the ball downfield. Brock is going over 4,500 passing yards. I think he would be in the realm of 4,700 passing yards. And then if Kyle Shanahan, I believe, evolves the offense to be more of a vertical passing attack, I do think, like, and it sounds crazy because of what Brock Purdy just put up, I think it was the 4,200 yards passing last season. But like I said, all 17 games, 85% of the fourth quarters are competitive at minimum. And you evolve the offense to put the ball in Brock's hands a little bit more than what they have done. There's a range of outcome where Brock Purdy pushes towards a number that we have not even seen a 49ers quarterback come even remotely close to. So I got high hopes for this team, this offense. I do think this offense is going to look a little bit different, but I also think there's a lot of room for improvement. People forget and don't really hold in their minds that Brock Purdy was coming back from a severe injury in his throwing elbow that required surgery, that had him on a pitch count all the way in training camp up through the preseason. And when he was starting week 1 against the Pittsburgh Steelers, that was like the first time, like, he last year was such a buildup of just getting back to baseline. He doesn't have to do that this year. He's already at baseline. What he's going to be doing now is building on top of that. So that's why I think Brock improves. I think the offense evolves. And I think the 49ers offense can take another step forward. So I'm looking forward to it. And they got to be pissed off. There's got to be an element of just just like, man, we can't keep getting this close. We can't keep getting this close. Throwback says, hopefully the O-line gets better. I'm worried. To be honest, I talked about this before. One of the things that's not discussed about the 49ers offensive line is the fact that Aaron Banks was in and out of the lineup all year. So because Aaron Banks was in and out of the lineup due to injury, that meant Jonathan and also Spencer Burford was also in and out of the lineup due to injury. So you had Jonathan Feliciano ping-ponging from left to right guard for a good portion of that season. So there wasn't a ton of continuity up front with a first time starting right tackle and a still relatively young in regards to experience center. And then obviously Burford and Banks are also young in their careers as well. One of the biggest things that I harp on for offensive line is continuity. One of the biggest measures of success for O-line is having a group up front that is lockstep. All five guys across the offensive line moving and doing the exact same things. And because of the situations of last year, there wasn't a full season of that offensive line. All five guys playing all 17 games, doing the same thing in lockstep. There's a lot of shifting. And so I think if you can get Aaron Banks in for 17 games, Brendel is going to be fascinating to see if Dominic Puni is coming in to compete at center or guard. I'm fascinated to see where he will be competing. And then you have Feliciano plugged in right away. Obviously, Feliciano will also be competing with Burford, but I would assume that Feliciano is going to start out with the starting group. And then you have McKivitz heading into year 2. If you can get this consistency from that group up front, I think you could see a much better output than what we saw last year. So I do think the 49ers can get better. So that's what I'm going to hang my hat on. I think a lot of people think that the offensive line is going to get worse. I don't believe it's going to get worse. I actually believe they're going to get better. But it takes getting a locked in, solidified group of 5 guys to play the whole freaking year together. That's what I want. We've had platooning at right guard, what feels like for the last 3 years. We've had a lot of shifting going on. I just want to see 5 guys lock in and play the whole season and be able to build and grow together. So that's what I'm looking for in regard to the offensive line unit up front. And if you can get that from that group, there's absolutely a range of outcome where they improve, get better, and take strides. So, and if you can do that, and Kyle's in his bag, Brock's in his bag, CMC's in his bag, you got Debo, Ayuk, Jennings, Pearsall. You got all these weapons, Kittle, and Kyle Shanahan's pulling the right levers. Obviously, that's the ultimate outcome. Throwback says Dominic Puni starting guard. I just don't see who he's starting over. If Puni's going to be starting at guard, it would come mid-season for sure. I just don't see it out the gate, and I don't see it over who they currently have. Um, I'm just not seeing it right now, but that could change really quickly in training camp if Puni comes out and he's just a dog, just absolutely dominating as a rookie. But also you have to keep in mind one of the hardest transitions in the NFL is going from college offensive line to NFL offensive line. The caliber of defensive linemen in college to the NFL is not comparable. So it becomes one of the hardest transitions in the league from a positional standpoint because one, you get 5, 6 padded practices before you're playing in preseason games and maybe 2 weeks of training camp before you're in preseason. It's hard. You got to show up to training camp ready to go as a rookie. So for offensive linemen, it's always a challenge. And it's always really interesting to see who is able to make that transition and who isn't. So it'll be fascinating to see. But overall, looking at the schedule, where we stand, how we stack, the 49ers are still one of the best teams in the NFL. Obviously, we haven't played a single game yet. So we're basing this off what we did last year and how we've kind of retooled the roster a little bit. But regardless, the 49ers are still one of the best teams in the NFL, have one of the best coaches in the NFL, and they've got a tough schedule. However, I do think it's a schedule that they could manage. So I'm pretty excited about where the 49ers currently stand. Obviously, it's not going to be easy in any stretch of the imagination. Nothing about that schedule to me says easy. Obviously, I talked about the opening first 8 weeks seem very manageable, but again, it's the NFL. These guys are all paid millions of dollars. They're all some of the best athletes around. So nothing about it is going to be a cakewalk. Definitely going to be a challenge. And 49ers 49ers going to be all over the place, traveling to the fifth highest travel in the league. So we shall see how the 49ers show up next year. But appreciate you guys. If you have any questions or anything, feel free to get them in now. I'm making a quick post. All eyes on the 49ers next year. Let's see. Questions, comments. What's good, Big Pun? I saw Travis in here earlier. Is this going to be Trent's last season? I mean, that's hard to say. I wouldn't expect it to be Trent's last season. You know, um, because I feel like Trent is truly so athletically gifted that he's a guy who could play forever if he wanted to. Um, I think it's just as long as the 49ers are competing and putting themselves in positions to win Super Bowls, I think Trent will stick around as long as he can because he mentioned that he wants to, keep stacking Pro Bowls. I think he said he wanted to break the Pro Bowl record for the amount of times being voted to the Pro Bowl. So I hope he doesn't go anywhere. Trent's my guy. I love Trent, man. Trent is my boy. Let's see. All right. So appreciate you guys for tapping in. Hopefully you guys are excited about the upcoming schedule. But hey, we got Dwight Clark event tomorrow. We have OTAs starting up next week. Football's close, baby. Football is really, really close. And nothing like the schedule drop to get the blood flowing, get us ready for football again. So appreciate you guys for tapping in. I'm out for now. Let's go. Appreciate all you guys over here checking in. Lot of content last couple days. I've been liking it. I like when we got some things to talk about. So we'll have more stuff to talk about, guaranteed. Because it's San Francisco 49ers. We always got stuff to talk about around here. So appreciate you guys. I'm out of here for now. We are gone. Smash that like button if you haven't already. Love to see it.